Town of Hollis Planning Board meeting of Wednesday, 23rd, October 24th. We'll start the meeting off tonight by call to order and a roll call from my right to left.
Tom Wachowski.
Heather Sullivan.
Recording in progress.
Seth Davis.
Greg McPherson. To anybody on Zoom that may be listening,
Wait, you didn't do.
we will be,
Did you speak? Did you give your name?
yeah,
I didn't even hear.
Mary will be next door until 8 o'clock. What did I say, Mary? Sorry, Martha will be next door, taking voting until 8 o'clock this evening. Sorry, I was looking at Mary, talking about Martha. Apologies. Do we have any correspondence from the select board this evening, Mary? None. Hearing none. Please get up to the lectern so people can hear you.
I didn't turn it back on.
Do we do this? Is that us?
Hello. The only thing you need to do at some point is to appoint a member to the Comprehensive Planning Committee.
Yes, we are going to talk about that tonight. That's on the new, the updated agenda, which,
We don't have yet.
sorry.
That's fine.
The person on Zoom raised their hand. I don't know if it's appropriate for
It's
them to
Nick.
speak, but her name is Linda.
We're gonna have a.
Hi, it's actually Nick Hebert. Sorry I'm not in attendance tonight, but my wife is sick and I'm home taking care of the baby, so I didn't want to be on the record tonight, but I am here so I don't fall too far behind. I apologize for missing the last meeting and this one as well.
Nick, you are welcome to join the meeting on Zoom. We would encourage it if you're available.
It might be difficult on and off with the baby. If the baby starts crying, I kind of got to focus on that. My wife's sick today,
Understandable.
but I will stay on for the duration of the meeting for sure.
Fantastic. That counts.
Perfect. So the first order of old business is we have on the agenda a public hearing for proposed changes to cannabis business ordinance. Looking for a motion to close the planning board meeting and open a public hearing.
Motion to close the planning board meeting and open a public hearing.
Second.
Tommy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Seth?
Yes.
So moved. We are now closed the planning board meeting and open the public hearing. Is there anybody in attendance or on Zoom that would like to speak and be on the record? Mary?
So I just had a couple of questions. I was wondering what the urgency in doing this right now was.
So the urgency is in order for anyone who might want to grow in a greenhouse, they would need to come in front of planning board and get their license before the spring growing season starts.
Okay, I thought we had a greenhouse in here somewhere.
It was in there. It was in a section. It wasn't defined, and it was in a section that it said outdoor. I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately. It was in a section that we were pulling out. I think it was in the section around caps.
Okay.
So I wanted to make sure that we specifically allow greenhouses.
Okay.
Because I think that it's just that's the direction the industry seems to be going with energy costs.
Okay, and I had a question about the caps. I don't think that I'm willing to take out caps
Okay.
for the dispensary.
So what? So the question around the proposal around caps is for cultivation facilities, for manufacturing facilities, and then what were you just saying about dispensaries?
I don't want dispensaries because a dispensary can have a second store if it's a store that applies, and then we would have another store.
So dispensaries do get licensed to have stores. It's not that they have a second store, it's that they can have a cultivation location.
They can have a second location, we checked today.
They can have a store and they can have a cultivation. I'm only looking to change it to.
We're not willing to take the chance on having a second store and going from 4 to 5 or 4 to 6.
Okay.
And we're not willing to not have the caps.
Mary, is that a select board opinion, or is that your
Select
personal?
board opinion, yeah.
I just want to be clear that.
Yep, no, it's select board opinion. Because the way we sold this ordinance was to have caps. We made it very specific. We would keep caps so we didn't have, marijuana all over the place.
Yes.
Successful businesses all over the place. Right.
Well, it's like if you really want to get some income from cannabis, maybe you should be working with the legislatures to give us part of the money back that they get for the state.
You guys get
Agreed.
a bunch of
They
money
get
from
nothing.
We don't get nothing.
Municipalities get nothing.
municipalities get licensing fees every year.
Yeah, we get
Yes.
licensing
When
fees.
no other business in the town of Hollis pays a licensing fee every year. Only marijuana.
Right.
Yeah, since 2021, it's $86,000 have come in from
Yep.
cannabis businesses.
But we
Which
don't
is-
get anything that the state gets
Yep.
for marijuana. We don't get any of that income back.
You don't get that from any other business.
No, but we should for marijuana.
Why?
If you want to increase the amount of money you get from marijuana, we promised the residents that we would keep it under control. So if you want to put it on the warrant in June to delete the numbers, then put it on the warrant.
Okay.
Same thing with registered dispensary. We promised them that we would not have more than 4 stores, one testing facility, which we don't have even an application for.
There's only like 3 testing facilities in the
I
whole
know,
state.
2 manufacturing, and one of which didn't have the frontage,
Yep.
and we haven't had any applications for the bigger cultivation grows. So that was the deal we made with the town to get the ordinance to pass originally.
So,
So no successful business there.
so Mary, I guess my question is, if the planning board decides to move forward, you're saying you guys would not be willing to put it on the January?
We can't put it on the January. It can't be on the January. It needs to go before the legislative body, which is a June vote, the annual meeting. It can't go on a January.
Okay. But changes to the zoning ordinances for other things can go in January, because
No.
we've been talking about the,
No, we got told today we can't put anything else on.
okay.
Yep. 'Cause
So,
we don't have time to have the required 2 public hearings that you guys have in your
Yeah.
current ordinance,
Yep.
zoning ordinance.
and so all we're doing in the January special is the committee is voting
Is
for
the
committee.
Charter committee.
Charter
Yep.
committee,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
All right, so no urgency then. I say that we see if there's any public comment on Zoom, and then maybe we take this a little bit slower. If select board is unwilling, or if we can't put it on, not unwilling, if we
Right.
can't put it on the January special,
Right.
then
But it
then
would
we
never,
can-
we would have never approved it on a special town meeting because it needs to be a legislative body.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure, because I know we've done a
Yep.
few other things.
I mean,
around it.
I have absolutely no objections to any of the definition changes. None.
Great, okay.
Except for the dispensaries.
So, Mary, I have a question. I just want looking for a clarification.
Yep.
This isn't my strong suit, but I just want to be clear. If it's brought to us that people want to increase the cap size or change the way it's worded,
They would have to vote on it, and it would have to be voted by a
question,
majority.
Yeah, my question is, it seems like the select board is against that. If it is brought to the select board with changes to the cap, would the select board prevent that from being on the warrant?
You'd have to ask the whole select board.
I mean, they can, the select
I
board
mean,
has
we
the
have
authority.
the
You have the
right not to
authority.
put it on, but
That was my question. That's
would I probably not put it on? My personal opinion is we'd let it up to the voters again. And I
That's-
pretty much have my opinion on what they would vote. And we would put it very specifically where it was, do you want to delete the caps?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
And just for clarification, there was no intention to change the caps on stores.
I know that.
Okay.
Yep. But, I don't see a reason to change the caps on manufacturing and testing if we haven't used the caps. So,
Okay.
yeah. And like I said, the definitions, I don't have any problems because it's definitely needed to be updated because we've had a lot of changes since, they brought it back and forth and back and forth.
Oh, yes, it changes
Yeah.
feels like it changes every year.
Or
Okay.
or twice a year. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with us taking a slower pace on this.
We want to hear anybody on Zoom? Or Mary, are you?
I'm done. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for
You're
your time
welcome.
and speaking.
You're welcome.
Anybody on Zoom? I'd like to. Hearing none.
So we've not motioned anything on this, have we?
Nope.
Okay,
The copy was behind your agenda.
thank you.
You can close the public hearing now.
Motion to close the public hearing?
For a second.
Second.
Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Seth?
Yes.
So moved. So with that, we reopen the planning board meeting and close the public hearing. Is there any planning board discussion on this matter?
I've said, I would like us to continue to pursue looking at updating the ordinance, but I don't think we need to focus on it today. I think that we can allow the board some time, and maybe we will get some feedback from the public on it.
Yeah, I was hoping a little more involvement today.
As was I. Well, that's why we have multiple public hearings.
Ben, is it possible that we send out the public hearing notices through the email the town has? I know I get them for random closures of the town hall or stuff like that. Can we utilize that a little more often for public? So anytime we have a public hearing, notify on there. That'd be great.
Please, Mary.
Yes, if you want the agendas sent out, the minutes sent out, anything like that, that can be done through the e-subscribe
Yeah.
part of the website.
I think the agenda and any public hearing notices would be great to have on e-subscribe.
Yeah, sure.
That'd
And
be
I'm going to
awesome.
be getting those done faster, so
That's right. Heather and I will work together.
awesome.
Much
And
appreciated.
just a comment, Heather.
Yes.
You wanted to add greenhouses or something?
Yeah, yeah.
I thought you were going to put a definition.
You know what? I just realized that I didn't, and that's the reason why is because the state doesn't have a definition, so I have to look to other
Okay.
sources.
And
But
the-
I just wrote that down that I want to add that.
And the other thing is if you did get your agendas done, for our meeting, we used to go through your agendas
Oh, okay,
at one
great.
point.
So,
You know,
and your
just so you
meeting
know.
is the week
Is the week
off.
before you. So,
Well, and I
Yeah.
need to get them 7 days in advance anyway. So
yeah. So just so you know.
excellent, thank you.
I guess, Mary, while you're here, we'll back up a sec to correspondence, if that's all right with everybody else. What kind of, has there been any applicants for the planning board admin role that has been open?
We've had a couple people inquire, and one of them is going to watch some of your meetings to see if she'd be interested.
Perfect,
Great.
thank you.
Yep.
So just as a reminder to the general public, we have an opening for an alternate on the planning board. And we also, the town has an opening for it is a paid position, correct? A paid administrative assistant / secretary position, which the job description's on the town website.
So it's for the planning board, the finance committee, and the appeals board. The appeals board meets, I don't know, it varies, but about 1 to 2 times a year. And the finance committee starts meeting in January for like probably 4 or 5 meetings, and then it's done and meets quarterly. So it's not like a lot of other meetings. And the planning board meets every other week. And when we have a 5th week, nobody meets.
Well, those are great weeks, aren't they? Unless we have something we're trying to finish up, then we have had a few meetings that we've done on those 5th weeks. I know you guys have done the same.
Perfect. Now if we'll get on track a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we'll finish up old business, put that on hold. Looks like you'll get some more changes, suggested changes made, brought to the board, and we'll discuss.
Great.
And we will have future public hearings, so be on the lookout for that, please. New business. We have LD 2003 affordable housing discussion. Has been brought to our attention that our current zoning ordinance does not address the affordable housing development and density allowances as part of LD 2003. A little back history, the planning board was advised that we did not need to incorporate this into our zoning changes that we made last year. At this time, it's been made clear that that information was incorrect and we need to add it now. So we'll be working on this for the June warrant as well. We kind of got this news pretty late in the game today, so basically if everybody has some time to look at the packets in front of you before the next meeting, we can hopefully put this on the agenda. But essentially, we are required to open up some affordable housing, which is 2.5 times density in some areas of the town. It is my understanding we can limit it to certain areas of the town. In reading through this, that's probably what my thought that we should, the direction we should head in, rather than send it to every zone.
So one thing I want to just bring up before we get too deep into this. So Mary, and maybe Mary, you might be able to explain to us. So we were under the impression that this did not apply to us because this only applies to municipalities with zoning with adopted density requirements in multifamily housing and designated growth areas or public water and sewer.
Right.
Or a comparable system. Which I think
So
is a
Southern Maine Planning and Development probably has every small town that doesn't have a public sewer and public water to redo.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to do it,
So what is it? Where does this apply to us? Because we don't have public water or sewer.
Well, you still have to offer it, and then they would have to come up with, a septic system that would handle however many rental units and sufficient water.
Yeah.
And I've copied water boroughs because it looks like they essentially copied the state statute and everything else. Now, a recommendation, and it's totally up to you guys, that the Roger had was maybe we should just send water boroughs. We should send water boroughs to our lawyer and see what he would say and how he would word it. But you guys can work on it if you want to. But essentially, the Waterboro one, which is on the bottom of 57 and 58, is almost word for word from the state stuff, except the only thing they don't say anything about is the fact that the person has to guarantee that they'll keep the housing affordable for 30 years. So, but it's essentially word for word from the state statute.
Yeah, there was a couple sections I was looking to add into theirs, such as that one.
Right. Yeah.
Because like Mary has mentioned, this is basically a copy and paste of the state statute. I looked in this today. But they clearly define some zones, which I think that's what we want to look into.
Right.
Not necessarily rewrite this whole thing because it's
very,
it's available for us from the state.
Yeah.
I think there's which zones or which part of zones, or I think that's the part that's going to take a little bit of time to hammer through.
Mm-hmm.
So page 57, 58 is just water boroughs, and then the state statutes behind that, and sort of, And then there's the LD 2003 guidance, just for review.
I feel like we've looked at that so much.
So many times, and it was like, no, you don't need to worry about it. And then I had asked a question about whether, who could vote on accessory dwelling units, and he basically said everybody could, but I thought it was interesting in the middle of, or sort of the fourth paragraph down. This was from MMA, and they said the law or DECD rule, to my knowledge, do not specifically prevent or allow a municipality to require owner occupancy in this way. And then he goes on further to say, but I think it's just a matter of time before somebody says, you're invading, whatever the word would be, my rights as a homeowner to do what I want with my property, so.
I agree.
So thank you for asking those questions.
And then there's just a handout that they provided us about
So I think we're kind
ethics and conflicts of interest, because we have to write an ordinance for the June warrant on ethics, so.
I think we're kind of skipping two subjects
Yeah,
here.
but I just figured I'd
Yeah.
tell you what was in the packet, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll address the ADU thing in a minute. Let's jump back to the
Yeah.
density housing.
All right, what, do we currently have any provisions for affordable housing today?
No.
We have none.
We have to.
Well, I'm still a little bit confused, but I didn't have time to go through the regs.
Because basically what they told us originally was that we weren't identified by the state of Maine as a high-density area. So we didn't need to comply with that section.
Yep.
And then, all of a sudden, when they started reviewing them, because we had to send the zoning ordinance in June, they said, oh, well, we must have just misinterpreted what they wanted, and now everybody has to. So all the towns have to have affordable housing, even if you don't have public water and sewer.
Okay. So,
So just so everybody's aware what the requirements are, municipalities shall allow an affordable housing development where multifamily dwellings are allowed to have a dwelling unit density of at least 2.5 times the base density that is otherwise allowed in that location. It may not require more than 2 off-street parking spaces for every 3 units. And it goes on for some state statute.
so I would say, my first thought is, anywhere that we allow I know we call it something different, I believe. Any location that we currently allow more than 1 dwelling unit, we should consider allowing affordable housing developments. That's what this is requiring. It's requiring developments.
I think you're gonna get a lot of pushback, because it is 2.5 times the density of the base zone.
People don't like cluster subdivisions.
Yeah, what is cluster right now? 2.5 times.
Cluster is, you have to meet the base
You
requirement.
still have to meet the base.
So this will double
2.5 times.
2.5 times. Excuse me.
So let's just say 10 units. Let's just, it's easier if I use an example.
Yeah.
10 units in a RR2 zone.
Yeah.
If it was not affordable housing
So
development,
let's just break it down a little bit easier. Say you have 2 acres in an RR2 zone, you could have 4.5, I'm sorry, 2.5 dwelling units on that 2-acre parcel.
and right now you could have
1,
1 plus an ADU.
correct.
Can you have 2.5
Can you have-
with an 8? Yeah.
Could
We're
you
going
have
the same place.
a 2 unit on that right now? Just a 2 unit?
I don't have the use table in front of me.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I still believe you have to meet the density requirements,
Yep.
so
Okay,
you
that
still
would
could
be-
not.
All right.
No, I take that back. I think that is incorrect. I think you can have a multifamily.
Net residential, and this is around net residential density, which we do have in our town. Okay. Planned unit development.
So laws for multifamily or dwelling units shall meet the space and bulk requirements of the underlying zone for single-family dwellings. So yes, you could have a 2-unit on a 2-acre parcel in an R2 zone.
So this is saying it would be 2.5 instead
thought-
of just 2?
I thought it would be double what's allowed. So if you can have a 2 unit on a 2 acre in an RR2, you'd be able to have a 4 unit in a 2 acre farm.
You'd be able to have a 5 unit.
5, 10, yeah, I guess technically 5.
Yeah, I guess that's how I would read that.
In a 2 acre RR2 zone. As
Yeah,
long
because
as
if you have, because you could have a 2-unit multifamily on a 2-acre in an R2.
Yeah.
So now you could 2.5 times that.
Right.
So it would,
At the very least, you could have a 4.
per unit.
Yeah.
Correct.
Or
Given,
excuse me, at the most you can have a 4.
given that you could meet a septic
Setbacks.
design
Right.
and water supply for those units.
Right.
Uh, And they have to meet yes, and 51% of those units need to meet the affordable,
Definition.
yeah, which is, there's different definitions for ownership or rental. So
Interesting.
that's where I think people are gonna have a hard time. If we just say blanket everywhere it's allowed, it's gonna be okay. Hopefully we can get some public opinion on this one.
Hmm. That would be great.
Seth? I can see the wheels turning.
Yeah, I agree that we need to look at the zones and look at like RR2, RR3.
Or it
Right,
doesn't
let's
have
look
to
at
be
the
zones,
zones.
it could be similar to an economic overlay zone where it's along certain routes, or,
Is there a minimum size it has to be?
What do you mean?
The minimum size that the zone has to be? Or the
Mm-mm.
as long as multifamilies are allowed in that zone.
And I think we should also involve the chief.
So how are we allowed to do it into zones? Because I'm not seeing that in Title 38 either.
I read it this morning. The development must be in a designated growth area of municipality consent, or the development must be served by, so it must be in a growth area essentially. So we would have to designate a growth area.
So if we don't have a growth area, that's where I was kind of coming at before, where I was like, I don't understand why we are required to do this.
dude, I'm still lost on them deciding that the public water supply is not public.
So
Because that's how the whole thing came about, right?
so we don't need,
They
sorry.
they reimagined what public water supply was defined as.
Well, no, it says comparable system, which a comparable system would be a private system that could
Support
serve the units.
like a public water supply.
Correct. Just like we have some apartment buildings in town that have a quote unquote public water supply because it serves an X amount of homes.
Right.
It's
And
called
that-
a community something. I think.
And then at that point, it needs to be served by a licensed water.
There's more to it. Okay, I understand. Yep.
So I did also just see in our definitions, something that is called a community septic system, which is a subsurface septic, which is not administered by the town of Hollis, and which serves more than 2 dwelling units. So you could have a private septic that serves multiple units.
Correct.
That the town doesn't, it's not public.
Correct.
It's just for the residents of that. Do we know if we have ever had that, or if any? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So where I'm getting hung up, and maybe it is likely me, this says in item 2, we shall allow, which means we have to allow,
Item 2 of.
I'm sorry, 4364, the state law,
Yep.
shall allow an affordable housing development where multifamily dwellings are allowed to have a dwelling unit density of at least 2.5 times that is otherwise allowed in that location, and then may not require the parking. So then it goes on to say, the development must be in a designated growth area of a municipality consistent with 4349, subsection 1, which I unfortunately, I don't think I brought my phone in. So do we have a growth?
But then the next word is or.
Mhm.
Or the development must be served by a public special district or centrally managed water system
And,
no, it says or.
it says or there, but then it says and a public special district or other comparable sewer system. We
Nope.
don't have that.
So if you,
Comparable.
or, so I think that's all one item. So or the development must be served by a public special district or centrally managed water system and
And.
public centrally district or other comparable sewer system. So it's water and sewer. So
Oh, I get it now.
Okay.
I think the and is part of that one sentence.
So
is
the or is something we have to require in our ordinance, this section. It can be in a designated growth area or So what if someone wants to build affordable housing not in a designated growth area, and they agree to put a centrally managed water system and centrally managed sewer?
We
Could
can,
we,
like Waterboro, they put specific areas these are allowed.
but do we know that Waterboro?
That would be a great question for legal.
Vetted.
Great question for legal.
So I think one of my first questions is, where do we allow multifamilies? And start there and see where we allow them and whether or not some of those areas don't seem appropriate for affordable housing. I don't know that I have
I believe it's in,
it right here. Use table, right?
yep,
Would be residential.
right there. Multifamily.
Residence two-family or residence multifamily? There's very little difference between the two.
Except for the North Hollis Regional Conservation Zone, where multifamilies are not permitted, but two families are permitted. Otherwise, they're identical.
This specifically says where multifamilies
Okay.
are allowed.
Great. So if we just go across here, we've got Hollis Center Village, North Hollis Village, West Buxton Village, RR2,
Nah, there's
RR3.
no West Buxton.
Do we not have that anymore?
No, I mean there's not a P in West Buxton Village.
There is on mine.
Is there? Which one do you have?
2016.
I got 2023.
Is that the? Okay, so we've got a question there. Because I don't remember making that change.
I only have Ps in North Hollis, and I have HCV, NHV, then RR2, RR3, RR3S, and RR3C, and North Hollis RCZ.
Do you have a P in multifamily and
Let me take my glasses off.
NHRCZ? North Hollis Regional Conservation, isn't it? Regional?
Yeah.
No,
You
I
don't have a
don't.
P there. Okay.
Okay,
I
neither
don't
do
know.
I.
We'll just have to get magnifying glasses.
We probably should.
Or bigger paper.
All right, so what we're looking at is determining whether or not we want to limit what is currently, where is currently allowed. So it's not allowed in NHRCZ. So I would say we wouldn't need to consider allowing it in that zone. Then we would want to look at the one conditional RP.
What's RP? Why do I know? Resource protection.
Resource,
Okay.
yeah, resource protection. So you thought that, so Hollis Center Village, so let's go back to our definition of Hollis Center Village and look at what density is for that.
80K.
40 or 80.
Oh, I don't have a P in 40.
Okay, so just the 80. So just the 2 acre.
Yep, just the 2 acre. And so that's 2 acres. So if we said yes to Hollis Center Village, that we would be saying you could have 4 units on a 2 acre lot as long as it had a combined water and sewer, and met all the other requirements.
And
Correct.
parking and,
Only,
yeah.
only 2 spots.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say they only need 2
So
spots.
we only
right?
need 8 parking spots.
Instead of what would normally
On
be,
2 acres, 4 units. Yeah, good luck with that. Really.
what do you mean?
Well, think about the size of,
It could be a one building, multi-story.
okay,
Doesn't have to be 4 unit. Doesn't have to be 4 ranches. It could be a one central building, 4 units.
okay.
1,500 square foot units. you're looking at a pretty small building, technically, is possible. The septic system is gonna be the holdback on all of these, but,
But that is something that the developer would have to figure out a strategy for that would be approved.
yeah, agreed.
I mean, so we've talked a little bit about people wouldn't want that on a 2 acre. So we talked about it is plausible, it could be done. What is it that people wouldn't like?
The comments that I hear personally, just talking about, is
Mhm.
people don't want that density. People like their space and like the,
They don't have to rent there. It's not encroaching in any, how is it, I guess my question would be, is this somehow encroaching on a neighbor if you have to have 2 acres, whether you build one house and an accessory or a multi, which can be up to 4, but you would have to have the right you would have to have a different density to do a multifamily, right? So what would you need if you did a 4-unit multifamily? Not
4 acres.
affordable. You'd have to have 4 acres. So that would be the difference, is that the affordable housing would be too close to your 2 acre, not you, to a resident's 2 acres.
I think that would be the pushback.
Yeah, I don't think people would be happy that 16 people moved in next door to them in a 2 acre lot. I think it's
Is it the 16 people or is it the 2 acre lot? Let's
probably
cut it.
both.
I think that it's the,
People
I
don't
think the
wanna-
2 acre is not really the issue here. I think that in a lot of ways in Hollis, the issue is, I don't want anything new or any new neighbors that I don't already know. And that is what I'm trying to ensure, that we don't blindly go in that direction.
Right, but if all the residents vote no to clusters and no to new business and no to subdivisions, then obviously, like, we respect their right to vote that way, and we should put it up to vote. I don't like the fact that you're not getting the choice. I don't like that it doesn't give the residents the choice. This is now happening in your town, there's nothing you can do about it.
I think we
Except
have
for
And
limit the size of your zone that you're allowing it in to a postage stamp, because there's no limit on the size the zone can be. So if Hollis wants to say, no, we don't like this, our residents don't want this, then you make the size of a postage stamp and tell the state that you've made your resource zone and you've checked the box. You've added your cheap housing in there, and this is our zone. It's now 2 feet by 2 feet. And see what they say. What are they going to say? I'm just saying, I from the residents that I've spoken with that don't like development or anything, everybody wants to keep Hollis the same. Nobody wants Hollis to change. Obviously, it's going to change eventually. We all know this.
Can we maybe not say nobody? Can we say, we have heard a lot of feedback from people that don't want it, but that doesn't mean nobody? Because I'm sitting here as somebody that does want to see change. So you can't say nobody wants it, because I might be one, but I am one. So
Yeah.
I would appreciate it. It's just a way that we communicate.
Yeah, Heather, I think we have somebody on Zoom. Nick wants to speak?
Awesome.
Nick? You have the floor? All right, well, hopefully Nick raises.
Yeah, sorry. No, sorry about that. Babies. The state has pretty much already kind of said what they wanted on that. I think if you try to make the space smaller and smaller and try to evade what their goal really is on this thing, it just brings a bigger microscope for them to come in and control it more. All the communities that are fighting against it on a bigger scale with the state it's become a battle. If you were to look at like Kennebunk, when they were building a development down there, it didn't go well when they fought against it. The state kind of came in and said, too bad. I think you got to be really careful on trying to find the loopholes with it, or the state will come down on the town.
I'd just be interested in Waterboro, because I don't know Waterboro very well. What exactly 1066 Main Street North to intersection of Route 5 and west on Route 5 to John Smith Way, how big an area that really is. You know what I mean? Because maybe that's how they got away from.
Correct. I'm not.
Because it looks like they specifically allowed those 3 areas and then said within this spot.
That's kind of where I was leaning to, as far as we could limit this to certain areas.
I still don't understand how we can. I just don't see anything in the state law that indicates to me that we can do anything other than allow it
Oh, because you're saying.
where multifamily
before.
dwellings are allowed to have a dwelling unit density. That we have to allow it wherever multifamilies are allowed.
Mary, can you or post that question to legal for us?
Great idea.
If we are allowed to limit the areas that we allow affordable housing density bonus.
And are there any parameters around those limitations? Because if we're allowed to limit that, couldn't we just limit it, scope it out completely? We just don't allow it in any zone. And then to Nick's point,
So, Ray, can you repeat that one more time?
I guess pose the question as, is the town of Hollis allowed to limit the extent of
to limit the affordable housing developments to certain zones, even if a multifamily dwelling is allowed in that zone.
or subsections of zones?
Because you're saying that it must be in a designated growth area. We're going to skip the middle part because it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Or the development must be served by public special district or other, so public water.
No, what I'm saying is the sentence before that. We shall allow it
Yeah.
where multifamily dwellings are allowed.
Okay.
To me, there's no other
I see what you're saying.
exclusion to that.
So the rest of it's just kind of a.
No, this would describe the development itself. So what I'm saying is that I don't see where Waterboro gets to say you can only have it in certain zones.
Unless they only allow.
Unless
I
it
got
is,
you.
right.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is that wherever we allow multifamily, this reads as if we have to allow affordable housing development wherever we allow multifamily dwellings. So to me, that would mean we would actually be wanting to look at where we allow multifamily dwellings and change that, and then this follows that. If that was how we wanted to do it. But I could just be, sometimes I get a stickler for language.
I'd say let's ask legal and
Yep.
we'll review once we have that.
Yep.
I don't want to beat a dead horse until
What
we have some
other
answers.
questions do you think we might have? So as I look over this Waterboro and the state one,
I want to make sure that we have the covenants that it's required for the. So there is some stuff in the state that requires how it's transferred if a new owner. I think there's some things like that we want to make sure we include in our ordinance. Maybe Hollis, Waterboro left out.
yep.
But that is the only question that I saw that was blaring for the legal at this time. Unless somebody else has
And Mary,
something.
do you know how, I'm thinking you might know this because of the work that you do with our, I think it's called Overseer of the Poor, right? About median income. That's a figure that's told to us, correct?
Right,
So
yeah.
we're not calculating
No.
median income or anything like that. Okay, great.
And then I thought it was curious that they don't mention the 30-year rule, at all.
In Waterboro, correct.
In Waterboro,
Which I
was
want to
like-
make sure that Hollis has that.
Yeah.
If that's what we.
You have to guarantee and have a deed that says 30 years, you're
Well,
allowing it to be 51%
Because-
affordable.
Right.
The caveat to this is 51% are affordable. So
Right, you've got to keep it that way.
You can't just sell it to your business partner the day after you build it and say, oh, they're not affordable anymore. Too bad.
Not that we have that happen much.
Mary, how often does that median income change? Is that once a year?
I think it's once a year. yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So the rents can change.
Yeah, it just has to stay in that 80% rent or
Correct.
120%. if you own it.
Correct.
Right.
Perfect. Any other questions on this item this evening?
Nope, but I gotta do a lot of reading.
Yeah, me too.
Perfect.
Appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Because, like, one of my questions would be, who's gonna monitor the income of the folk renting the units?
That is a great question.
You know, they just throw that out there, 80%. So who's gonna monitor the income of the folks renting the unit?
And
Who's gonna, how,
Oh, the new select board.
or I mean, is it code? I would want us to be a little bit more clear in ours about who is doing that and how often it's done.
Well, in Sanford, they have a licensing fee for apartments and rentals
Of course.
that they have to pay every year, and it covers the cost of having to have code and the fire chief go out and do safety checks, life safety checks
So
every
they
year.
have an ordinance that requires certain life safety.
Well, we're required actually to inspect apartments every year too.
Do we have any sense of how many apartments we actually have in Hollis?
I would ask Dwayne because he's been inspecting them,
Okay, great, thank you.
and there's lots of issues with them.
Perfect. Nick, you have the floor?
Yeah, Old Orchard Beach also has that licensing fee that you have to apply for every other year, and every other year they come out and just make sure you're up to code, but they don't check finances. In the town of Portland, when people were breaking the rent regulations there, they had to complain to the town, and then the town took action on the landlords, and typically it was fines. And they're still, I think it was on the news a couple months ago, actually, but their planning board was reviewing their ordinances for how to enforce, because the enforcement wasn't, the town doesn't feel like the people of the town don't feel like the town is enforcing it well enough, because they kind of just let it slide when they get the complaints. But it is the tenants who have to complain and say, hey, these people are charging over whatever the percentage is, and bringing that up instead of somebody from the town being required for checking up on them.
Mary, can you ask the legal in the same inquiry, what action can the town take if landlords are found incompliant with this after the fact?
Well, and then I have another, and I don't know, I mean, this might be getting too much into the weeds, but part of why you want affordable housing is to help people when they are lower income. But that help is designed to help people become greater incomes. So does that mean you'd have to kick someone out
Yes.
if their income
Yes.
got over? So if you got to 81% and someone complained, or that we had some practice of,
Yes.
yes.
There's no
I don't-
incentive to
it is
better your
not-
life.
It is not that the renter needs to make 80%, it's that the rent charged needs to be 80%, I believe.
so this says for rental housing, a development in which a
household
household
in-
whose income does not exceed 80% of the median income, blah, blah, blah,
Oh, that was it.
can
Yeah.
afford a majority of the units. Can afford, that doesn't mean that they have to be rented to them, I think. And that it has to be 30, so let's say median income is $40,000,
Correct.
80, or let's,
100,000.
100,000. 80% is 80,000. 30% of,
24,000, so
Is-
$2,000 a month.
okay, so the rent couldn't be more than 2,000 a month in that scenario.
It doesn't matter if the person, from my understanding.
Got it.
It doesn't matter if the person makes 80,000, it's that a person making 80,000 could afford it.
So it would be putting rent control on for
100%.
for at least 51% of the units.
For 30 years.
Okay, all right.
So
What
it's
is-
not.
do we know the median income? Do you just off the top of your head? Is it under 100,000?
100% it is.
It's probably around 40,000
We call it 80.
in Hollis.
So it's not that we have to inquire the tenant's income, it's
Got it.
the rental rate.
Got it.
Oh, without spending more than 30% of the house.
So it doesn't actually promise affordable housing to people who actually need it.
No.
Okay. Okay. No, it's important for me to understand these things. I mean, I hope other people feel like it's important too, because that does change the way I think about it in some senses.
It's harder to get behind.
It's very much harder to get behind. I mean, I know we have to do something, but do we, maybe I back it off a little bit on limitations, knowing that there's no guarantee here that anyone who actually needs the help would get the housing.
That's correct. Don't you love the government?
Perfect.
All right.
All right, so without
Yeah.
any further questions, we'll do some more review, and we'll keep this on the agenda for next meeting as old business. And then Mary brought up some ADU conversations. Mary, do you want to kind of touch base on that again real quick, now that we're back to this?
Please.
Yeah, I just wanted you to be aware that they're watching ADUs in the state with the requirement for, the owner. Some of the towns require that an owner is a resident of either the ADU or the house, and the state's sort of saying that's only a matter of time before somebody takes them to court and says you can't do that.
So, and then also the question was, can somebody on the planning board make an ordinance or vote on an ordinance if they own an ADU?
So I think
If
the
I'm reading
answer
this-
to that is yes.
Correct? I'm just reading
That
through the
was
rest
my
of
that was my opinion after reading it. Yeah,
So one of the things,
because
so I had talked to
they
Paul.
basically said that if you didn't let you guys vote on half the stuff,
Yeah, we all own land in Hall, or
yeah,
We're all property owners.
we
you own
we-
property.
Yeah. So therefore, we.
So that'd be like saying, okay, Greg, you can't vote today because
You, yes, because you're a property
Yeah.
owner.
I live in RR2, so I can't vote on anything that affects RR2.
Right.
I had this discussion with our prior chair when we were doing some of the marijuana, some of the cannabis ordinance stuff, because I had been accused of having an interest,
Business interest?
a business interest or, a financial interest in it. And the way Paul described it to me, and I don't know if this is consistent, I'm going to read what that's MMA that gave that?
And
Yeah, no, I think it's valuable. Did you get this from Maine Municipal, MMA?
And is there conflict of interest
Yep.
definitions in the back, if you'd like to read that as well?
Absolutely, I do plan to. But the way Paul described it at that time was, you as the planning board member should be ethical to identify if something that you're potentially voting on fits one of those definitions. And that he said that, unless it was some, obviously, when we talk about Tom's conditional use, Tom can't vote on it. That makes sense. Yes, that makes perfectly good sense. So I guess it is, some people get confused about what conflict of interest actually is, and whether or not someone who has an ADU would have a conflict in making some of these decisions. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that it is not as black and white as what I had initially thought a conflict might be. But I'm looking forward to reading. I find MMA to be a good source, so I'm looking forward to reading theirs. So do we need to make we have no motion on the floor, I don't believe, to change the ordinance as it stands today, which is requiring an owner to occupy.
I think this is gonna require some public hearings and much more conversation.
Didn't we
Is
try to
there-
do that already?
What's that?
Have a public hearing for
It was
owner-occupied
on,
stuff?
yeah, it was on the
We had a
last-
public,
No, I
and
don't.
nobody showed up?
Oh, the ADU, yeah, nobody's,
Yeah. So
nobody,
it ended up being, because we couldn't come to an agreement,
correct.
but now the state's saying, and then the nice lady at the economic development place, she's fantastic. Her name's Hillary. She's awesome.
What did she say?
She said that right now nobody's challenged it, but they expect to be challenged very soon.
But also in
So-
paragraph 4 of the legal opinion we have says the law or DECD rule, to my knowledge, does not specifically prevent or allow municipality to require owner occupied in this way. So they don't prevent it or allow it, so.
Right, and she was saying that it's bound to get. Yeah.
Well, I
exactly.
think that,
Right.
that legislatively too, there's a chance that this comes up legislatively and they change the statute to go
Yeah.
whichever direction they decide they want it to go in.
Right.
So I guess for us, the decision is, do we continue to, do we hold? Do we continue to push on getting public opinion on the topic? Or do we hold our own feet to the fire and say, let's motion and vote?
I think we're gonna get a different vote by by the number of people that show up on the board that day.
I think that is accurate. I think that's an accurate statement.
And that's why we like to try to get public opinion.
I mean, and ultimately it goes to the public for approval.
Well, we can't change it until June.
Yep. So I'm gonna
So
start.
hopefully we can maybe put that again on a public hearing on the same date as the LD 2003 stuff. So hopefully we can get some traction and get some people in the door.
Mary, has the select board done any public hearings on this topic, the ADU? Okay. So I'm gonna start a parking lot document, which is kind of those things that we keep coming up that we want to get to, but we're not gonna solve it in one. This is one of the items.
If we
on
just
there.
keep pushing into old business as well,
Yep. Yep.
I think that'll kind of keep it relevant.
Mhm.
So then, Greg, I'll send you and Heather what we want to ask the lawyer, and you can sort of
That'd be great.
tweak it.
That'd be
Okay.
perfect.
Thank you.
Unless you want to send it to everybody, but you guys can send it or whatever.
I
How
guess
do you guys feel?
would
I'm-
you?
I'm okay with you guys.
Between the two of us, I feel like we do a pretty good job. Yeah, I think we do a pretty good job at like identifying or correcting the other one. It's Greg correcting me most of the time, let's not get it twisted.
I yield to you many times.
But it does seem as if, and that gets things moving a little bit quicker. I think that's kind of, thank you, Mary.
Perfect. And then the next order of new business, since we have Nick as our fifth person in our quorum. Nick, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Perfect. Today we have had an update on a conditional use permit application. There's been a permit application submitted to the code enforcement officer which has been denied, which is the first step in a entity bringing a conditional use permit application to the planning board.
Can I just interject real quick? I
Yes.
didn't get an answer to my question, but they have to deny it because they can't issue conditional use.
Correct.
And then I did ask Dwayne if there was anything else in the application that was a cause of denial that we weren't aware of. I hadn't heard back. I asked at 6 o'clock, so that's my fault. But I just wanted to make sure that the denial, it just feels so weird to me that it has to be a denial, that it can't be a referral, but look, I'm not gonna approach changing anything in that part of the ordinance. All right, so thank you.
So, Tom Wiskowski, would you like to excuse
Yeah.
yourself from the planning board?
Do I have to say anything, or is that?
Yeah, you have to give us a brief,
No, I mean like about excusing myself from the planning board. There's
Just-
I
just
didn't have
say
to
it.
before, yeah.
just say it. I'm excusing myself because it's my project.
As a resident,
Ooh.
Oh, I thought this was the same one I used 6 years ago.
perfect.
I started a used car lot. All right.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Tom Wachowski. Are you coaching me through it? That's funny. My name is Tom Wachowski. Transparency and accountability. I sit on the planning board. I'm excusing myself as a planning board member. I'm now a member of the public. I came to the town of Hollis with a dream, with a self-storage facility application. So that's what we're here to talk about today. I currently own a used car lot over on Cape Road. It's been active and amazing for the past 5-6 years. Trying to expand a little bit. We're going to get rid of some of the storage space that we have for cars now, and replace it with a small compared to everything else in town, self-storage facility. I think that kind of covers it. You got questions?
Perfect. So the first procedure is to determine the completeness of your application. So we'll just kind of go through the application and make sure we have everything needed. Everybody have this from last time. 7.3.4 is what we're looking for here. So what we need is a complete and signed site plan review application form, the property deed, the names and addresses of all abutting property owners, description of the proposed use to be located on the site, including but not limited to hours of operation, number of employees, and materials being used, etc. Cost estimates for all proposed site improvements, a scaled site plan showing the boundaries of the parcel along with the location and description, method of solid waste disposal, stormwater management plan if applicable, erosion and sediment control plan if applicable, and any other information deemed necessary by the planning board or code enforcement officer to make a reasonable and informed ruling on the proposed project. So let's kind of go through and check off these items as we see them. So first we'll be looking for a site plan, a scaled site plan.
Would the scaled site plan fall under minor or major?
So take that back. This is a minor due to the size of the proposed
Less
building.
than 3,000 square feet.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. So that's what we're looking at, number 7.4 on page 73 versus 7.5, which is a major. So
Thank you.
that's one thing I'm not seeing, Tom, is in our application a scaled site plan.
So I don't think this is site plan review. Isn't this aren't we doing pre-review right now? Which is not required, I believe. I believe it is.
I guess, are we looking at this as a sketch plan review?
A lot of this stuff has changed since last time. So
Everything
this is
has
all-
changed since
This is
last
all
time.
new, just for
So
clarification.
Are we considering this a sketch plan review or?
What are you looking for?
7.7.1, minor site plan review procedure. So the sketch plan review would be prior to submitting a full application, the applicant for a minor plan would encourage, but not required to, schedule a sketch plan review with the planning board. It's not required, so it's my assumption that we're gonna skip that step.
Is that okay with you?
Perfect.
Is that a correct assumption across the board? I'm assuming, since your knowledge of the ordinance, that you didn't feel that was necessary.
That's correct.
So then I go to item B, which is determination of complete application. Which, under this article, shall submit a complete application with fees addressed to the board chairman and delivered to the town office. And so forth.
So complete and signed site plan review application form. Yes. Do you feel like we have that?
The application form, yes.
Okay. I'm doing each line item.
Yep.
I agree. Seth, Nick? Copy of the deed?
If
Copy of the deed.
it's there in the packet, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a deed, that's number 3, page 2 of 2. Item number 3. Abutters.
How does abutters usually work? The town provides the list of abutters
The
to
town used to provide the list of butters, of abutters, and now it's required that the applicant, according to,
How do you get it?
If you go on the town tax map, tax card, it'll provide you that
Okay.
information.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
does the town not double check, though? Just to be 1,000% sure? I feel like it's in the town's best interest.
I do for the appeals.
You double
board.
check. Okay.
For
the
appeals.
appeals board.
For the appeals board, I don't know if,
You don't, sorry, we don't do it the town doesn't do it for conditional use permits anymore? Okay.
So let's check with code and see if maybe they do it because they are the ones that referred this application to us. So I'm assuming there's some level of review.
In my experience with other towns, as applicant, I was required to provide the list of abutters.
And what happens if you are wrong? You skip a name.
Then your application would not be complete.
Don't record me.
How do you know? How do we know? Do I have to go and check and say this list of abutters is the same as the list of abutters on?
I thought it was code
Tax.
enforcement. I'm not 100% sure.
My guess, somebody would have to challenge and say, I don't think you have all the abutters here.
I've never run into that situation as a chair of less than a year.
Okay.
So I'm gonna write that as a note of something we need, Tom.
The abutters aren't. They should be in there.
Oh, are they? Did I miss?
Yeah.
I apologize.
Do you not have all the stuff from?
I had it on my.
No, I don't see a list of abutters.
This is the application that I have.
That's what they gave you.
Yes.
They just gave us today just the one page, right?
That was from last meeting that we
So
were given.
that should be 11 pages.
Is there not? They've left stuff out. So there should be a scaled. What's it called in there? That's the scale. Never mind. That one's okay.
It's not the scale on the paper though. I guess that'd be a question mark. Let me search my email to see if there's more in an email version.
The one I looked at today was 11 pages, so if you've got 11 there, that's what we have. And that's the one that I took from the email that Tammy sent us originally that said this was on the secretary desk.
Yeah.
You can just make a list if you want, and then we'll just
Yep.
figure out what the town forgot to put in there. That's fine.
So,
I can promise you that I've submitted a list of abutters.
okay, so
The
we
fact that
don't
it didn't
see
make it to the
abutters right
planning
now,
board.
but we'll figure it out.
100%. Yeah.
So, that's outstanding. What's next? Description of the proposed uses, including but not limited to hours of operation, number of employees, materials being used.
I don't think I listed
Proposed
certain
use will meet all local state. 3 employees, open 24 hours.
Are you planning to be like gated, like what I've seen other ones? You're gonna just, people will
Yeah,
have.
there's a very, very almost identical facility over in Waterboro. It's literally you just kind of pull in and do your thing and then pull out. So it's very.
Do you mind sharing that location just as a
Yeah,
FYI?
absolutely. I don't know the actual address.
Yeah.
It's on whatever the road is going to the milk room. Towards the milk room, it's on
Yeah.
the right.
Yeah,
by,
okay. So 7.4.4. So we have hours of operation, number of employees. What do you think materials being used?
It's gonna be steel building.
Okay.
Uh,
And you're continuing your car dealership?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're adding a use.
Correct.
I believe Dwayne has been double checking Vulcan space.
Terrific.
A cost estimate is not in our packet.
Okay. I'll get you that.
Perfect. A scaled site plan showing the boundaries of the parcel.
Oh, wait, hold on.
We do have that in here, but the scale is askew.
What does that mean? It's not accurate.
It's not accurate.
Okay. So fix the
Oh,
scale.
so Tom has more stuff over there for
Okay.
us.
Yeah, I think this was all sent in, but I don't believe it made it into. Is this not in your packet?
No.
All right.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, yeah, that was sent after.
Oh, here we go. Now we're checking off some boxes.
All right.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, so go back to
Great.
a scaled site plan. We do have a scaled site plan now.
Sweet.
You don't have a cost estimate, or cost of, would you like one, Tim?
Okay.
Mary, would you like one?
Oh, sure.
All right, let's get everyone.
Perfect.
All right, so this shows the boundaries of the parcel.
That would be on
on the
Number
original
2,
one.
plot plan.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then with the location and description of all proposed site features, including all buildings, additions and renovations to existing buildings.
Which,
Which there won't be any.
Yep. Floor plans, that's not really.
Right.
And all elevations of principal buildings visible from a public way. Is anything visible?
how many units are you planning on putting in here?
Should be 14.
14. Can you?
One building.
One building. It's gonna be a 30 by 100, 30 by 120 at the most.
Can you?
Or does it say 20 by 120? 20 by 120.
20 by 130, this says.
Can you give us a floor plan of that, please? According to number 7.4.6.
Just what the
interior walls will be.
yeah, what it'll look like?
Yep.
Okay.
And
Just,
like the distance, the
Yeah, sure.
measurements.
Absolutely.
And then it looks like we need elevations of anything that's visible from the public roadway.
That one's new. Yeah, that one wasn't there before. So
Okay, yeah. So that's also,
So not height elevations, but essentially a profile of the building, what it'll look like from the road.
could he take a photograph of the current and then draw in? Like, is that
what is
appropriate?
acceptable? This is a great. We can segue into that for a second. What would the board like to see for that answer? Because this is again for the public. This is the first time that this has been used in this new format. Has been used
Correct.
to evaluate a potential business conditional use permit.
So typically for elevations, we would have quote-unquote architectural drawings of what the front of the building looked like and what so this will be visible from two sides, the end facing Cape Road and then this side facing with your current house.
Yep.
So architectural drawings, just a profile view of those two sides of the building.
This says we only need it if principal building's visible from a public way, so we only need one.
You will be able to, I'm saying we'll need this here and here, because those will be visible from Cape Road.
Yep. Oh, I got it. And then do we need also the current buildings to also be shown on? So I always think of elevations as being like where it is on the land. Is that not accurate?
It is not
Okay,
correct.
I'm sorry.
So they just want basically a picture
Of what the building will look like when
how,
it's completed.
how tall it's going to be, how wide it's going to be, and what it's going to look like.
What, yeah. Yeah.
And so we're the provider of, I'm sure you're not gonna build these. You're gonna get these from a supplier, right?
That's correct.
So the supplier should have those.
Yeah, when you
For
buy the
you.
building, they send you the plans. So
Oh,
that's
they
the-
don't do it in advance.
No, they don't send plans before you.
What if you tell them you need elevations for?
Nope, we already tried. So
Okay. Do you feel like you?
yeah, I can absolutely do that for
Okay,
you guys.
great.
No problem.
Method of solid waste disposal, where disposal will be accomplished through subsurface waste disposal systems. Will there be no bathrooms?
Nope, there'll be no sewer, no power. Any waste, solid waste, will be disposed of through the already on-site dumpster. The dumpster contract through Troyano, I believe.
Perfect.
You do have to bring a
Yeah,
flashlight.
you will. Yes, you will.
It'll cost half as much as the one down the street, though. So supporting.
So no test pits. We don't need those.
No, because there is no septic design.
All right. What about stormwater management, if applicable? What would make that applicable?
So, is the
It's already a gravel area, so it's already in
impervious surface?
Thank you, impervious surface.
So you're not expanding any impervious surface to your current lot?
That's correct. So we're removing basically car storage right now, where we store cars, and just kind of transitioning over to
So
this.
we're trading impervious for for
That's
other
correct.
impervious? So you would not be generating more stormwater in any direction that it already isn't
That's correct.
going?
Okay. Erosion and sedimentation control plan, is that the same?
That would be a during construction. That's typically we ask. It's more of a building code item, code enforcement item rather, for those erosion control sediment plans, building code. If
It
you
has to
wouldn't
do
mi-
with the land itself.
It's just during construction.
It's kind of like under the best standards and practices thing.
So it's not an erosion control plan for the building, it's for the construction.
Correct.
Got it. So maybe we should.
If you
look
wouldn't
at-
mind throwing on where your e-mix berms will be going when you build this, or whatever you plan on using.
Of course.
What does he throw, what is that called? Throwing on, adding,
Erosion and sediment control plan.
what did you call them, berms or whatever?
E-mix.
Erosion control berms,
Got it. Thank you.
or filter sock, or silt fence, or whatever.
Materials that are designed to,
Yep.
thank you.
And any
Sorry, we do these so seldom.
Yeah, no,
That-
trust me. It's,
And I'm now note taker, so
I don't mind being the guinea pig.
I'm twice as worried about everything. Okay,
So-
what other information?
And
that we
which
don't have.
which plan did you want that on?
any plan you seem applicable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
I can't tell you how to make your plans.
No, I just want to make sure that everybody knows what the board wants to see.
Yep.
So when they come before you, they're not surprised by things.
I can't tell you how to present your
course.
application, but I can.
What?
As long as they're following what we have here, as long as it checks off the box and
It's on a plan.
it makes sense and it's very easily to see.
So I do have a question that I think might be necessary information.
Yep.
I'm looking at this
Yep.
plan, and is this the smaller white
It's a
square?
parking space.
Parking.
That's a car. I'm not very good at drawing.
I guess what I'm asking is how much parking are you accounting for?
So it will be gravel. It will always stay gravel.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be one parking space there.
One parking space.
Yep,
So
because
we have
you
to look at our
wouldn't-
parking ordinances to make sure that that's
Right. So
sufficient.
right for the one employee, which is because you need a parking space for the employee.
It's not, there's no requirement around parking for customers.
You wouldn't park. I mean, maybe.
We
I don't think
gotta
so. I don't believe so.
unload.
Well, yeah, you'd park in front of your unit to unload. So you would.
So is that also going to be parking spaces?
That parking space is going to be there because the ordinance requires there to be a parking space for the employee.
So
Got
would that mean the space in front of the storage would be like a loading, unloading zone?
Yep. So everything else is pretty much, like I said, it's
So currently I see cars on this map.
that's correct.
So these are cars that are part of the dealership, I assume?
That's correct.
And where are those cars going to be after?
The junkyard.
Okay, so you'll.
Yeah,
so-
we're getting rid
okay.
of cars that we're storing
Okay,
and
So,
making it a storage unit.
so to answer your questions, Heather, under 6.16.7, letter H,
Mm-hmm.
one space for each person employed or anticipated to be employed on the largest shift for all types of commercial, industrial, or other permitted uses.
okay. Per shift, got it. Thank you.
Adequate spaces shall be provided to accommodate customers, patrons, and employees. That does not apply. I apologize.
So that's so interesting that we don't have a customer requirement. We just have an employee. parking
Yeah, it's kind of
requirement.
wild.
Yeah, I mean,
Something
something
like
for us
this-
to talk about.
We've got businesses in town that use 202 as their customer parking. So it's kind of it's a wild west out there.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Can you also just put dimensions on that one parking space?
Absolutely.
It's supposed to be 200 square feet.
For sure.
We do have an ordinance for parking for retail, wholesale, or service establishment, or office or professional building, and that's one space for each 150 square feet. So, we do have side topic ordinances for parking otherwise. But I don't think this falls under retail or wholesale or cert.
Right, because you need a lot of square footage for the place down on parking spaces.
So the current list that I have would be a list of abutters, cost estimate, floor plan, and elevations. Is that you're correct?
Butters, cost estimate, floor plan, elevations. Yes. Erosion control.
Erosion control, that was it.
Erosion control.
I have the same list.
So, 6 point, 16.7.9A, adequate spaces shall be provided to accommodate customers, patrons, and employees at automobile service stations, drive-in establishments, open-air retail businesses, and amusements, and other permitted uses not specifically enumerated. So
I'm sorry, what number is that?
6.16.7.9.
I.
So that would apply to your parking spaces to ensure you have enough.
Yep. I would also say that perhaps that one space for each 150 square feet, it could be considered a, well, unless we have a definition, it's not an office and it's not a professional building, so I
Right, and again,
digress. Yeah.
if you're required to have a parking space for each 150 square feet of your building, the storage facility down by the gas station would have, I couldn't imagine how many parking spaces.
Well, what I
Yeah.
like about this is that you're renting a storage space that's a person coming in and out a couple of times. It's not turnover like a restaurant would be. How many cars can fit across the front of this? Can you just get that for us too?
Yeah, for sure.
How, like, using
is
that
there-
200 square foot,
13.
200 square feet?
I'm saying if he had parking spaces across the front, he could fit 13
Okay,
at 10 feet wide.
Correct.
and that's the stand, 10 feet.
9 foot's a standard.
Perfect. Okay, well, the 13 for a 14 unit, I think is pretty adequate, in my opinion.
Would you like me to put the 13 spaces on there?
Or designate that as a loading unloading zone /
Okay.
that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you, sorry about that.
Nick, any comments on Zoom since you are part of the quorum for this project?
I have none. No.
Seth?
No.
Are you planning on
Other
having any
questions?
signs?
Yes, there is a sign detail.
Sorry.
No problem.
Number 4.
Do we need to ensure compliance with?
No, that falls on code enforcement.
Thank you.
I believe it's a private resident that falls on code enforcement.
Is that gonna be an illuminated sign?
No.
Perfect.
It will be almost identical to the one that's already there now, just above it.
Thank you. And then have we gotten from Dwayne that space and bulk is good, or is that still under review?
So I do have a 620.2. Non-residential users may display on premises 3 signs, and signs on both sides will be considered 2 signs.
What's the issue?
6.20.1 signs.
Okay.
For the purpose of this ordinance, a sign utilizing both sides shall be considered 2 signs. 6.20.2 permitted signs. D. Non-residential users may display on premises 3 signs.
So I'm looking at C because he lives there. If the primary use of that property is residence. So wouldn't it be C or D?
Well, if that's the case, then 2 signs are permitted.
And is that 2 signs total or 2 signs per use? Each accessory use may have 1 additional sign not to exceed 2 square feet.
Okay, good. Well, is a conditional use an accessory use?
I mean, you've got I would argue that you've got a primary use, which if somebody lives there, that's always gonna be residential. It's primary because more time is spent residing than anything else. And then everything additional would be an accessory use. Do we have a definition for that? We do not. So let's look at conditional use, see if it says anything
So
there.
that's the problem with the signs, shall not exceed 6 square feet in each area. Residential homeowners with home occupations, conditional uses, where the resident's home is the primary use of the land, may display 2 signs. Each sign not exceed 6 square feet each area.
Is the board saying that I can't have 2 signs, or excuse me, a sign for each business, and I can only have technically 1 sign that's double-sided and then 1 side that's single-sided? Is that how, I believe that's how the ordinance reads, or what you're saying the ordinance reads?
I think we might want to have Dwayne's opinion on this too.
There's some conflicting wording in the ordinance.
Yeah, there is.
But each accessory use may have 1 additional sign not to exceed 2 square feet.
I don't
So
have
is that an accessory to your,
It wouldn't be an accessory use, it'd be a separate use. It'd be 2 conditional use, 2 separate conditional
2
uses.
separate conditionals.
Right.
Already approved sign. HRS Auto Sales is a 2-sided sign, correct?
Correct.
So you would want to add an additional 4 foot by 8 foot sign.
For the same, excuse me,
All right.
the same way that any business that started would want to. You
So
have a
the-
business, you want to sign.
The way I'm reading this,
Yep.
after reading this 4 times, if you have a home occupational in your home,
We don't.
you could have 2 signs that equal square feet.
Right, there's
you're
no home occupation.
Yeah, your non-residential uses may display on premises 3 signs, no sign to exceed 32 square feet.
Which is.
The total gross message area of these 3 signs shall not exceed 64.
Right, so each use gets 3 signs,
And you're gonna have 2 signs, you have 2 signs for your HRS auto,
correct, which is
Which
one
are-
use?
which are 60, you have 32 square foot each
Exactly.
sign.
Yep.
And you're gonna have 2 additional for the new use,
2
which will also
signs
be 32 square feet each sign.
Correct. So that plays. That works.
My understand, if I'm reading it, that's how I'm reading this.
So technically he's gonna have 4 signs.
Correct.
Nope,
So,
each use
Each
is going
use
to
will have
only have
2
2
signs.
signs.
understood. Great.
There will be 4
So,
signs on the
yeah,
property.
so I think that's, I mean, for our purposes of review and approval, I think ultimately, you know, it is a code when the signs actually are going to be erected, right? It's
Right,
a
so you
code
guys just have to make sure that
that there is
I-
a sign plan.
I'm aware that it needs to follow the sign ordinance.
Follow sign ordinance, Tom.
Got it.
I just wanna make sure we all understand how I'm reading it versus.
I agree with the way that you're reading it.
Well, real quick, I don't want to bog down here. Let's not get bogged down. What's the 3rd sign? So not a total of 64 square feet between 3 signs.
Mhm.
So you could have 3 signs, not just a front and back. You could have a front and back and then another single-sided above it.
As long
Could
as,
have your,
as long as all
street
3 do not exceed 64 square feet.
so you could have the street number, a sign that's just your street, you know, whatever
Yeah,
the address
the street
is.
number.
Yes, you could have 3 signs per use.
I appreciate the clarification.
Me too. Those
Oh.
were my only items that I thought might be additional for us to discuss.
So unfortunately, I don't think we can find your application complete at this time.
I agree.
We will hope to see some new information from you before the next meeting, and we'll move you to the next agenda on old business.
That would be great.
And
Any,
that will be, once we find complete, that's when we move to, public hearing and scheduling public hearing and scheduling site walk, right?
correct. I believe we actually have written the new ordinance. We could schedule a site walk now if we found it necessary.
Tom, do you have a preference?
Let me just go back and.
Oh, I was gonna say no site lock like the pot businesses we did.
No.
We're not gonna set a precedent with that?
Nope.
Ah,
What was that?
okay. We chose not to do, excuse me, the board chose not to do a site walk on one of the marijuana businesses. So I was gonna go ahead and say no site walk.
One of them, because, I
Hey.
mean, yep, so, I mean, you can't say that, you can't motion for it, but,
Hey, hey,
So at any point during the review process, the planning board may decide to conduct a site walk or public hearing. Site walk and review is optional on a minor site plan review.
Then I'll gladly put it out there for us to discuss.
I think in transparency, I would take less leniency.
Oh yeah, no, interesting chance. You're more than welcome to come to a site walk. I just wanted you to, sweat it out
We
a
do
little
have the option to not, but in full transparency, since you are a planning board member and have no conflict of interest, I think we should schedule a site walk.
Yes.
bit. I agree.
Do you want to wait until, do we have to wait, or could we schedule it?
We can schedule it at any time during the review process.
I just know we're coming up against winter, and we've had challenges in winter before. Should we
Yes.
schedule a site walk now, or for 2 weeks? I worry that we're gonna,
Gotta watch out for snow. We don't have site walks in snow.
we don't do it.
That's right.
Our next planning board meeting is November 13th. And the one after that is potentially getting pushed because of Thanksgiving.
Correct.
So I would urge to move it on the 13th.
Motion for us to do a site walk at the current HRS Auto Sales location on November 13th at 6 p.m.
I second it.
Nick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Yes.
So moved.
Do we want to schedule a public hearing for the same night, or do we want to wait for that? I don't know if we can do public hearing before we have found you complete.
We, at any point during the review process, we may decide to conduct a public hearing. I think with the holidays coming up, it would behoove us to schedule it immediately after the site walk.
Motion to have the public hearing on November 13th at the regularly scheduled planning board meeting.
I second that.
Nick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Seth?
Yes.
So moved.
What's the address to that again, or what's the business I can go for?
I have to do I have to write an actual public notice. So
Okay.
that will go to everybody. What is your address, Tom?
660 Cape Road,
It's on the
Hollis,
application.
Hollis, Maine. Map number 8, lot 2 in the EOZ zone.
That's more description than we've ever got for a site walk. I just want to throw that out there.
It's pretty good for the last one. Perfect.
Walk by Old Man Stevens' house on the left.
With that, hearing no other further communication,
Nick, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, not at this time.
thank you, Tom, for your application.
Thank you.
And we welcome you to join the planning board.
Oh, they're open spots.
I would like to get from code enforcement a written space and bulk
Yes.
confirmation, which I think that's something we've talked about. We always want to get those down going forward.
Yep. So I don't know if you could hear Heather on the microphone, but we were asking code enforcement for a written space and bulk analysis,
Confirmation.
confirmation analysis. With that being said, we'll move on to any public comment. Anybody on Zoom? Planning for next meeting, we're going to have a site walk at 6 p.m. at 660 Cape Road on November 13th. At 7 p.m., first order of business will be a public hearing for Tom Witkowski. I always say that wrong, I feel.
You gotta butcher my name.
Witkowski, yeah. Witkowski Mini Self-Storage Facility, followed by discussion of proposed changes to cannabis business ordinance, followed by affordable housing discussion, followed by ADU residency requirement.
All on the same meeting? I mean, do they just remain topics on the
Remain-
agenda?
Yeah, I think we
I'd
should
like
just,
to remain them as topics, and then if we run out of time, then we'll address that as it comes, but I'd like to keep old business pertinent, so we're continuing. If we
So that we
decide
have
to,
it listed someplace.
if we decide to skip it, we can make that move on the fly.
So there is one item that we got an email on. It relates to, God, now I'm gonna forget. What did we just do the last round? It was flood.
It's Harbin Way.
It was the flood zone, the flood zones.
Yeah.
And we do have an email that it's recommended but not required that we update our ordinance. I'll send it to you, and then we can figure out if it needs to come in front of
Okay.
the whole board.
Perfect.
Okay. I thought so too, and not required, but we should probably just as a group decide on it. But Mary, you've reviewed it as well.
It's like maybe, I want to say like 10 items.
And that came from the state
From-
agency.
Well, and it was things where they had required maybe, and I might get the wording wrong, an engineer, and they said, no, you could have, it was some of those things where they required a specific person that was very specific,
Okay,
and they sort of backed off that.
okay.
And it's maybe 10 items, it wouldn't take very long.
It just feels like as we're continuing to update ordinances, it makes
I would
sense.
think it would take probably, I would say 10 minutes max, just to flip through what the changes are.
Okay.
Perfect. We will add that item as well as new business.
Okay. I've got my notes. Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
So moved.
Yes.
No.
We got food.
No.
We can hang
Yes,
out.
if folks want to come to a planning board
Recording
meeting,
stopped.
sometimes we have pizza.